Went up for,
Wow. What are, so there's two statements.
identify yourself?
Bill Kemble with the Daily Freeman. What are the incidents or specific things that the state lawmakers have done that best point out exactly, you can say, this points out exactly how dysfunctional we are? What is,
That's not a question, that's a premise, and you're entitled to it.
no, I'm asking you whether it's putting the lieutenant governor as that an example of being dysfunctional, disagreements in terms of three men in a room. Is that an example that you could point to that says that's how I would? I'm asking what you think points to what.
I don't know that I quite understand the word dysfunctional enough to want to enter into a slogan contest.
Okay, forget the word dysfunctional. What are the incidents when the collective legislators get together in Albany? I think people feel that something happens where, it falls apart in terms of feeling like state government as an entity is answering their needs. And I think that's where people get frustrated when they go to their checkbook every day and can't find enough money to pay for college tuition. They can't find enough money to pay their property tax bill. When every time they turn around there's another tax or fee on their everyday life. And certainly when actions aren't being taken by the people they believe should be taking those actions to help them with those problems is where the anger and frustration goes. And certainly I think there's no shortage of ideas in Albany that have been collectively stopped through the legislative process. And my premise always is, we should do more to have up and down votes on legislation. Let us as legislators be on the record as far as whether we like something or don't like something. And then everyone can figure out who's for what and who's against what. And I think really it's all about ultimately how do people really feel, their perceptions of how they feel. And, because basically they're saying that what is going on doesn't work for me. And I get this at home. I represent 5 counties. I've got a crazier looking district than they're up on those walls right now. I represent 125,000 people over 1,162 square miles. It takes me 2 hours and 20 minutes to drive from one end of the district to the other.
I had a car like that.
My prior district, when I first got elected, I represented 3 counties. And those 3 counties were within a 45-minute drive of each other, which, in other words, the district was a little bit more compact and more, shall we say, reasonable, so people felt more in touch, I think, with their legislator. And it's not about me, it's about the entire state. So to your point is that I think that people are they are angry and frustrated. I think, and even in recent months, I think there's this growing frustration, not just with the state, but at the federal side, where people are really nervous when their 401ks are going to 201ks, when legislation that's going to cost in the billions, if not trillions of dollars, are really our tax money. When you look at the fact that in the last 10 years, our state budget has grown from $77 billion to $132 billion. And if you do the math, that works out to about a 65 to 70% increase in spending over the last 10 years. And what I ask people wherever I go, for all those, your personal income that's gone up by 65% in the last 10 years, give me a show of hands. Not a one goes up. When I ask for a show of hands, how many people in your state government do you believe is working for you? There's not a group that I go to that I get a single hand up. So I think that's what's driving people to look for an alternative idea in terms of trying to make change to state government. And government is supposed to represent the people. It's not supposed to be the other way around. And hopefully that we have this opportunity to have a dialogue, and a civil dialogue, as we've been talking about, to go over the pros and cons of having that exactly done. Because what I've been saying is that we've introduced any number of pieces of legislation to reform state government. There's legislation that's been introduced for term limits. Whether you like term limits or not, there's legislation introduced. Legislation has been introduced for initiative and referendum. Legislation has been introduced to eliminate backdoor borrowing. Legislation has been introduced to have state spending caps. Legislation has been introduced to have property tax caps. But these bills do not make it to the floor of both houses at the legislature at the same time for an up and down vote. This past year, in the legislature, marriage equality was brought to the floor of both houses of the legislature for an up and down vote. It doesn't matter where you are on that issue. The point is, in a democracy, you had an opportunity to vote yes or no for marriage equality. And this was controversial, it's emotional, it's personal, but we still did it in both houses of the legislature. So if the legislature would start doing more of up and down votes on the issues that people care about and see what the results are, whether it gets something passed or not, hey, that's what democracy is about. Most votes wins. The problem is these things don't get to the floor to find out who's got the most votes because of politics, special interest, and the list is endless. So, you know,